Let's take a look at using space, objects, and styles for doing occupancy calculations. This is part 3 of a 3-part series on calculating floor areas and what you can do with those floor area calculations. And it is also a series specifically focusing on ARCHIdigm's custom tools or modifications to the styles available in AutoCAD Architecture. It is focused on this tool palette that we have in here called General Tools Spaces. In the previous video, what we left off with was a series of spaces where we showed manual and automatically generated spaces for this office environment or office scenario, second floor, let's say, and the corresponding tables that were created from doing the spaces and the tags associated with those spaces. In that video, what I forgot to cover was that the tables that we created have a height value. Now you can go in here to the schedule table style, and you can always select height here, and you can just delete it if you don't want it. But if it is something that you want to show, the way to change the value on any of these spaces for the ceiling height is that you have to select one or more spaces. So I'll do 2 of them. And then on the properties palette, you have to come over here to where it says geometry type is 2D. You have to change that down to extrusion. And then you'll see that there's an option for ceiling height. So I'm going to change that to 9 feet. And then you can change this back. So when you do extrusion, it actually turns the space into a 3D object, which I don't particularly want. So I'm going to change it back to 2D. But it'll keep that height value. We cannot change or could not find any way to change the default value on space ceiling heights to anything other than what comes with the product. There might be a place where we could not find it. So they always come in at 8'6". But now that I changed that value, I can update, and I should see 9. Yeah, there it is for the 2 that I changed. So now the ceiling height is 9 feet there. Okay. Now to do occupancy calculations, we're going to go a little more advanced than when you saw discussed in these schedules. We're going to tag these spaces with a custom tag that also introduces custom data, more new data for a new table. So it's very similar to the process of doing these tables, only it's a new table and new data. So if I select a space from our style here, this is the manual one. If I select that and I go to the extended data tab down here, you'll see that that data came in here, and it's our space object standard data. But when I want to do the occupancy stuff, it's not going to be there. We didn't default it because you don't always need to do occupancy calculations. So we'll tag it first to bring in the data. So I'll come down here, and I should see in the tags, on space tags, that there's 2 occupancy tags that we created. One is set for to use with a leader that comes off of it. So if you can't fit your tag inside your spaces, you can draw it outside with a leader. So I'll do both here. So I'll do this one first. I'm going to go ahead and just pop it here visually. And then I'm going to do the next one so you can see what that looks like. I'm just going to shoot it straight out. Okay, so there. So those are the 2 different types. Now, offices will often want a different arrangement of their tags or different information in there. So you would have to reverse engineer what we've done to restructure it to suit your needs if you have something different you need in your office. But at least this is set up with some data in there that should suffice to get you going. You can see we have the area report, so that's pretty obvious. The 300 and the 1 might be obvious to some right away, and then there's a question mark. So let's address these. I'll go for the question mark first. So I'll access the data here. So if I go and select the space, and I go down to the extended data tab tab over here. I'll scroll this up. Now you'll see the new data was added. It says occupancy here. This is the new data that came in. And what you'll see is we have uh, what would you call it, a default value for the number of exits. So, you know, this may be something you'll have to change. Most of the work that I work on has a default value of 50. So if I hit 50 or more, I'm going to need 2 exits. And then it goes from there up. So you can change that value to meet whatever needs are for that particular space. Let's see. Then you go further down and you'll see you have your load factor. That's something we'll talk about in a minute. Of course, that's a changeable field, so you can assign that to something different. But what I wanted to look at is that first question mark. So it's not on the list. So if you're looking for it there, go all the way to the top. What also got introduced was a new classification. So all the spaces before had the status, and if you recall, the status is existing, proposed, demolished, replaced, or omitted. The omitted is just a way of like removing it from a schedule. But the other category here you'll see pops up here, and then you can select your occupancy group. So we've created or placed in here a common list. You'll see assembly, B, educational, factory, and so forth. Even under the assembly, we added subcategories. If you need to modify the list or increase it or change it in any way, I'll show you in a second how to get there. But I'm going to set these to B. Okay, and while I'm at it, I might as well set this one to a B as well. And why don't I just go in and set everything to a B? But I won't do that right now. Okay, so you'll see the B shows up. Let's click on this again. The next thing we'll look at down here, so I've discussed the load factor here for exits. The common thing is that you'll have to let the software here know what you are intending for your load factor. So we defaulted it to 300. I'm not sure why. It's a big number. It may, you know, for a B, it's not going to be that. So if I go to the table that I use, which is the California Building Code, and I go down here and I look for business areas, it's 150. So 300 is something like, what do they even have here, 300? The only 300 on the list is information technology equipment facility. I think, oh, here's another one, storage, stock, shipping areas. All right. So you could argue maybe we should set that to 150 or something, but it doesn't really matter because you'll just run over there and set it accordingly. We even add a little list of common numbers, so I'll set this to 150. And you can just type it in also 150. Okay, and we did try to make this a little more advanced, and I'll get to that subject in the Style Manager. But we felt this was the safest. This is our first stab at creating the occupancy calculation tools. So we wanted to keep them relatively simple so most people can use them without getting into a lot of code. And so this is now taking about 300, dividing it by 150, and coming up with 2. So that's pretty good. It's working. Okay, now for all of these other spaces, why don't I just select one space, and I'll do a right click, and I'll just say, let's see here, select similar. Okay, and oh, let's get this one too. Okay, that's good. I have this one. All right, let's set them all to a B. So we'll run hand in here to B. Okay, and let's make sure that all the data has been added. So I'm going to go down here. So these weren't tagged, so they don't actually have the property set data for occupancy. And if you go around and you tag them, they'll get it. But I wanted to show you just a quick trick. If I want to add the data without tagging them, I'll just use this icon down here for add the property data. And it's not this, not this. I'll uncheck the ones I don't want. I just want to add the occupancy data. All right. And then now I can go down and I can set them all to 150. Okay, and they're all set to B. Good. All right, so I'm done with all of that. And I could go ahead and generate the table, but let's go and take a look at this, this classification before I move on to the table. So if we go to Style Manager and we now go down to Multi-Purpose Objects, you'll see in here there's a classification for occupancy group, and it's just a table like this. You can expand, and you'll see the add button over here. So basically just build a little table that allows you to select this information as a classification. Now under applies to, you'll see that it's set for space, right? So if you wanted to apply a, I don't know why you would do it, but an occupancy group to some other type of object, you could. But it's set to space, and then we just created a list. Now this is where it would have been cool if you could somehow attach a formula or data. So for example, suppose I had another category or another list over here where I could say the load is 150, like another thing here or something. That's what we were hoping for, but could not find a way to do that with ease. So then it has to be done with code, and that gets a little convoluted for many people. And we may do that in a future release. But okay and okay. I like the fact that you have to go over here and look it up and make sure you're typing it in the value. That makes sure your mind is running through the checking process of doing it all correctly. Let's do the table. So I'm going to go ahead now and now, yeah, I'll just grab everything, though I know there's going to be some errors in grabbing everything, but I'm going to go ahead and grab everything, and then I'm going to come down here. Okay, so it's got existing because we made in the previous video, we made this one existing, and then it's got proposed, and then the one that's demoed will not show up because it's theoretically doesn't count anymore until you redesigned it. Everything is showing up as 150, but that's not an appropriate value for corridor. So typically what I would do is I would not, so this is how I personally do it, is I would not include that. I wouldn't even tag it. That's going to be a non-load space. So I would go down here, selection, I would remove it. I'm also going to remove the closet, which is still labeled office, and the storage room, that's questionable, but let me remove this and remove this and remove this. Okay, and so now the table is more accurate. It's showing just the occupied spaces. They're all Bs, and I'm seeing basically each office has two. And just looking at it, you can probably tell that these are all 2 people offices. Now, if you were to go over, let's say this office here, and you were to change on the extended data the maximum occupancy load for one exit, and you were to go low enough, it will change the value over there. So suppose I went low, I went all the way down to like 1. Notice this will pop up now as a 2, right there, because it's so low now that you'll need 2 exits. For 1 exit for each occupant is basically what's happening there. But just to show you that it works, I'm going to put that back to 49. Oops. All right. So that's, wait, what happened there? That's showing, oh, that's a different office. I saw 3 show up and I thought, that's odd. How did it grow to 3? But that's probably right for this one. Which one is 3? That one up here. One of these is 3. Somewhere there's a 3. Okay, so that's the basics of how that works. Now you may or may not be annoyed by the deselecting. Some people I've noticed do tag all the spaces even if they have a 0 load. This is something we may have to change in a future release. But if I go ahead and I tag this, okay, it's going to show up. This is the corridor, which should not have a load on it. What happened here is that we decided that we should not allow a 0 occupancy load. So if you go in here and you put 0 in, it's just not gonna, it's gonna round it up to a 1. And we even put a warning down here. If you highlight, don't use 0. You can see right there, don't use 0. And the idea was we were concerned that people might use 0 as a way to do a demolish or an omitted. We'd rather have you use the classifications to do that. However, if you were trying to do a table and you want to show that that is an area that has a 0 occupancy load, it is possible to do that, but you would have to learn how to do a little bit of code. And I'm going to demonstrate that because it's good to know how this stuff works. So we'll go to the Style Manager. And we're going to go down to where this calculation stuff is occurring. It's property set definitions. And here's the occupancy stuff. And here is the load factor. And notice that's where that little, the little warning about do not use 0. If you do need to use 0, what we'll do is we'll change the code. So where is the code? Occupants right here. So what I did was I went down to the calculation field down here. This field feeds the other field. So I'm going to go ahead and double click here for occupants. All right, and you'll see, like I showed with the calculations for the room areas or floor areas, here's similar code, but it does a different function. Now what you'll notice here is we're filtering 4 values that are less than or equal to 0, and then we round them up to 1. So what we need to do is change that so that it's if it sees a 0, we want it to report 0. Again, that is if that's how you want to work, and we would need feedback from our customers to let us know that that's what you would prefer to have in there, and we can make that in the next release. But what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and highlight all of this very carefully, Control C, and then I'm going to run, let's see, enter, and paste it, and I'm going to change this to say else if. So you'll see this is an if, else if, else if. So there's a couple of cases of more ifs in there. And what I want is for this one to only say 0. So I'm going to say if that equals 0, then the raw value is 0. And then I'll come up here and just take out the equals and take that out. So now it says if the value is less than 0, make it 1. If the value is 0, make it 0. Now notice when you do the cut and paste, sometimes there's a slight problem in locating the information down here. So what I like to do, see, I can see this is not working over here. The results are all kind of jacked up. So I'm going to highlight this whole thing like that very carefully, and I'm going to tell it to go down. Occupant load factor, I want that down here, and double click. Okay, so it's weird, but cut and paste doesn't seem to actually pull through the link to the data source. So that's why I had to do that. I had to go down. This is the data source that I'm pulling from in the code. And then it automatically will put in the brackets and the source of that property set data. The rest is just code coming basically out of here. If you go through here, you'll see all the different functions. Miscellaneous, here's an equal. So you could put it together by going through here and just plucking your code out of here, or you can manually write the code in or do cuts and pastes like I just did. But so this should work now, and I don't even need to test it. I'm pretty confident that that'll work. And I'm just going to do an OK and an apply and an OK. And then I will now test it in here, REA. So this I should set to 0. And it should, let's see, add. Oh, it's still doing a 1, so that's go back. This one is okay. It's less than 0, make 1. If 0, that equals 0. Yeah, it should work. All right, so sometimes you have to jiggle the data a little bit. So I'm going to move that over. There we go. I could have closed and reopened, but the tag, and this will happen to you if you make changes to on other tags, is I don't know what it is. It needs to be refreshed somehow, and regen doesn't work. But that did. I just moved it over. But the table should have Oh, now the table updated. Yeah, it's funny. So if I'd closed and reopened it, it would have worked. I just didn't want to do that. So now you see that corridor is listed in here. It has a load factor of 0. It's going to say 0 occupants. And then it's still saying 1 exit. We could change that. I don't know what we want on that one. See, I don't do my tables with you know, places that have no occupancy. I don't actually, I don't schedule if there are no occupants, I'm not scheduling it. But at least you could see how you can go in there and make a modification. And if you need, what would you need exits to become? It's all, it still needs exits. I'm going to leave that up to anybody who's one of our customers to work with this. You can, of course, remove the exits, or you can tell me what you think it should say in exits, or you know, like I said, this is the first iteration of doing occupancy tables, and we're looking for feedback to improve it for the next release. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing back. And definitely use this as a template, you might say, to do your own schedules and your own tags and so on. I'm just looking here to see, so this is the number of exits. I mean, it's just pulling it from the exits data there. Let's go. The final thing here is if you want to build your own tag, it is a little tricky, and I've done other videos, a little tricky in AutoCAD Architecture to make these tags. It's mostly because of the ridiculous scale setting of 3/32 that goes way back to the first release of this add-on to AutoCAD back when it was a true add-on. This tag is an occupancy tag. So I think it's, yeah, here it is, right here. It says occupancy centered 1. So I'm going to bring it in, and see, that's why it comes in huge, is because the scale of the tag is disproportionate to the actual use. And that comes in from this, if you haven't seen that. There's this scale right here. This has been just a problem. I mean, ever since they introduced annotative scaling, this should have been removed. But, you know, maybe you could argue it's for legacy purposes, but this thing is, it's the inverse of 3/32 times bigger, if that makes any sense. The inverse of that bigger. Anyway, if I explode this, yeah, you're going to have a hard time seeing the data, but the information needed to fill that out, I'm moving these out here so you can see. Move this. These are just, boy, it's hard. There. These are just attributes in a block, and they have the property set definition here. So if you go to property set definition and you see this one's called GT space objects occupancy, you'll see that here. GT space objects occupancy. Then you see the full colon. And it knows, AutoCAD Architecture will know that what you're doing is you're looking into that property set definition. As soon as you put that full colon in there, it knows that. And then you list the data field in that property set definition that you're pulling data from. So once you get that, it's actually pretty simple to pull the data out and then put it in. So now you just got to build yourself a cool little table, and you got to set your data so that it reads properly with respect to, you know, left to right. Here I'm doing middle. I think I did everything here on middle center so that it always reads nicely in these little boxes. Yeah, I think that pretty much is it. I will probably end up doing another video or so in the future to get deeper into this, but that pretty much it's the end here of the 3-part series on areas, and I hope there's some useful information for you here. I'm out.